What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm doing my Premier League predictions for the 2023-24 season. Let's ignore what happened last season and how bad I did. This time I promise I'm doing a lot better. At the bottom of the league, I think everyone's putting them in the bottom three, is Sheffield United. The lack of quality in that squad is a bit alarming. They've lost their best player in Iliman Ndiaye for just 13 mil. You cannot spend that sort of money on a player that's as good or better than him. It's a huge loss, especially for a side that doesn't have enough quality anyway. They've lost Sander Berge to a potential relegation rival and a team that came up with him last year. Another massive loss. There's Hassan Vinicius Souza. Don't know too much about him. Apparently he's like a defensive midfielder, athletic. You know, he's probably someone they need. Hopefully he'll do well for them. But they've also lost McAtee and also Doyle as their loans expired. They've gone back to Manchester City. I have seen him linked with returns for them too. I've seen Palmer linked with a loan there as well from Man City. I don't know if any of that will happen. They have signed Trusty, who I believe was on loan at Birmingham last season. I think he scored against us, but I'm still not too impressed with him. Definitely not a Premier League level player. The Blades do have good support and they will be there no matter what, but I don't think it'll be enough. They've been linked with Chuba Akpom as well of Middlesbrough, who was the top scorer in the Premier League, in the Championship last year. That would be a great signing for him. He could potentially, you know, replace Ndiaye. He scored more goals than him last season. He'd be great. I'm not sure how close it is or if it will even happen, because it is likely Sheffield United will come back down and Middlesbrough could come up next year, or this year, sorry. So we'll see. But if they do sign him, they do have a fighting chance, and I probably would expect them to finish a little bit higher potentially. Now in 19th, it's Wolverhampton Wanderers. First of all, I'm just going to get my personal bias out of the way. I absolutely hate Wolves. Everything about that club just pisses me off, man. Like, terrible football. In the last 2-3 years, they've been the most boring team to watch. They are so bad, they're so defensive. They spend 100 mil every window just to do fuck all. And it's finally bitten them in the arse, and I'm so happy about it. Yeah, fuck Wolves. But now we'll get onto the non-biased reasons why I think they're going down. Their squad is just terrible. They've lost their only real good player in Ruben Neves. Did get a big fee for him, but they can't spend it, so it doesn't really matter. You know, Cunha for like 50, 60 mil, whatever it was, absolute massive waste of money. It's just not great. Same with Nunes, it's just not good. You know, 100 mil them two costs combined, that's awful business. Neto will be back probably this season. You know, obviously he missed the majority of last season through injury. He could provide something, but again, I don't think he's that good. They've lost their manager just days before the season starts. I don't know why they didn't do it earlier. You know, there was links in May of him potentially walking away because he was angry about lack of funds. I don't know why it's taken this long for that to happen. You know, Wolves have really dealt with this badly. They've got a fantastic manager, O'Neill, in, but he doesn't sound very confident. And I'm not surprised. That squad is awful. He's not going to be able to make any signings. He's not going to even get to know the team. So they're just done. You know, they've lost Collins, a very decent defender. They've lost Cody, who wasn't fantastic and isn't fantastic, but potentially could play a role. They've lost Jimenez, who again hasn't been the same player he was back in 2019 since his head injury. You wouldn't expect him to be, but he's still someone that could make a difference, especially in a squad that has absolutely no quality, man. Like, Hwang Hee-chan hasn't done it. They've lost Adama Traore, who provides a different option. It's just not looking good for them. And they've taken a £100 million loan from the government. If they don't stay up, they're finished. Like, they're gonna go tumbling down the leagues, and I will be there. Now in 18th, another team I don't really like, Luton Town. I do think they're gonna go down. I think they've done really well in this transfer window with their signings. They haven't spent a lot of money, but they bought players that might not be Premier League quality, but will definitely be able to come back if they were to go down. I think their home record will be good. You know, it wasn't fantastic in the Championship. I believe it was only like the 11th best or something, but it will change the Premier League, and the fans know they're going to play a much bigger part. They're going to be loud. They're going to be there for their team. I think signs like Giles and Chong, you're both young players. Giles has been great in the Championship for the last couple of years. Chong, you know, was probably one of the bright spots in a poor Birmingham side. I think Nakamba on a permanent's a good signing as well. You know, these players are fantastic Championship level players. So if they were to go down, which I think they know is likely, they'll be able to come back up straight away. Even someone like Ross Barkley, you know, he hasn't been great lately. He's for the last few years, but he was good at points, you know, like at Everton. So he has quality. If they can bring him up to speed, you know, and he might be able to provide moments of brilliance. It'll be interesting to see how Morris can cope with the Premier League as well. He was the third top scorer in the Championship last year. I don't think he'll get more than 10, to be honest, but, you know, I think they've got other players that could chip in, like Chong. I do think that the game against Burnley being postponed is huge, man, because people talk about the fixture list not really mattering because you play every team twice, once at home, once away. Anyway, it doesn't matter when you play them. But I think in this sort of situation, it really does matter. When you've got a club that hasn't been in the top flight for so long, the buzz around the club when they're first up is huge. You know, you look at Brentford beating Arsenal a couple of years ago. You look at last season, Bournemouth beating Aston Villa. I know it was at the time Aston Villa weren't very good, but still, it was probably a bit of an unexpected result for most people. I predicted it right, but anyway. Genuinely, I think they would have beaten Burnley because it would have been their first home game back in the Premier. It would have been buzzing. It would have been so good, the atmosphere. But I don't know when that game's going to be played. By that point, the novelty might have worn down. You know, Luton might be in a bad run, and Burnley as a squad are a lot stronger than Luton. Like, you know, that sort of situation could be the difference between surviving and going down. In 17th, and a team who I think might just avoid relegation, I've gone with Everton. I think their squad is still really poor. You know, they've added Young, who, contrary to his name, is not young. But he adds good experience. They've also signed Danjuma on loan. He wasn't great at Tottenham last year. He rejected Everton last January to go to Tottenham, but he's at Everton now. The young Portuguese striker they've signed, he's unproven. We don't know if he'll be able to handle the Premier League. They've been linked with Gnonto, I think would be a great signing, but still I just don't see a lot of quality in there. You know, they've kept Onana, which is good. Iwobi is also a decent player. If they sell Gray and replace him with Gnonto, that's a massive upgrade though. Like, Gray is so overrated. He has the potential to do something great, but overall he's just so inconsistent and, in my opinion, not good enough. They will need this new Portuguese striker to step up straight away because Calvert-Lewin's always injured. They missed out on the first choice striker as well in Bilal Touré. I think he went to Atalanta in the end. However, they have got Branthwaite back from his loan in the Netherlands. He was pretty decent, I believe, the year before last. I remember him against Brentford. I think he got a red card in that game, but it was a bit harsh. I thought he played well. He's had a good loan spell. It'll be interesting if he can, you know, make the step to the Premier League now. But they have got Sean Dyche, and I would back him to keep anyone in the Premier League. So I do think they'll just stay up. Now in 16th, I've gone with Crystal Palace. Now I've seen some people put them in the relegation zone. I've seen a lot of people put them up in like 11th, and they do always finish typically around 11th. But I just think their squad this year is a lot weaker. They've lost Zaha. They're potentially losing Elise because he only has a £35 million release clause, which in this market is incredibly cheap for a player of his quality. They're also potentially going to lose Eze because apparently he rejected a new contract a few weeks ago. That could have been wrong. But I hope, as a QPR fan, I'm hoping he has because we need the money and I don't really like Palace. They've bought Mateus Franca in, a Brazilian winger. Obviously, him being a Brazilian winger must mean he has some quality. But he's young and we don't know how he'll adapt. You know, he's going to have to fill in Wilfried Zaha's boots, which is a big task for such a young player. I think Lerm is a great signing, especially from another team that might be in and around where Palace are. He's a really good defensive midfielder. Him and Doucouré as a pairing. They've also signed Lewis Hall on loan from Chelsea. He's fantastic. He's so young, but he's versatile. He can play in central midfield. He can play at left back. He can probably play a bit further forward if you need him to. And they've still kept Guéhi and Anderson, as of right now at least. Guéhi's been linked with Newcastle. I think Tottenham as well been linked with him. And they've also got Roy Hodgson. I just don't think he'd take him down. I think he'd know how to keep him up. So that's why I think Palace will be fine. In 15th, and the final newly promoted team, is Burnley. They have lost a few players from the promotion campaign through their loans ending, like Teller, like Matson, like Howard Bellis. Important players. They have signed England under-21 hero goalkeeper James Trafford for just £15 million. This man kept 6 clean sheets, didn't concede a single goal at the tournament, and saved a penalty in the last minute. Obviously, they've still got Manuel Benson. He's going to be huge for him. He was very good last season. And obviously, I mentioned him earlier, but they've signed Sander Berge from a potential relegation rival. That's a big signing. They signed Amdouni. Don't know too much about him. I know he's a Swiss striker. Be interested to see if he can adapt to the Premier League quickly. And they've also bought Bayer back from his loan last year. Another good signing. I think Burnley will be fine. I don't think they'll be quite as good as other people think they'll be, but I do think that they have a good squad. They play good football, but I think they might struggle against teams who play a low block and just defend against them. However, they've also been linked with some Manchester City loanees because obviously they've got Kompany as their manager. He's got a great relationship with Manchester City, their former captain. They've been linked with Palmer and McAtee. They've been linked with Lokonga as well, who was, I believe, on loan at Crystal Palace last season. And they've also signed Aaron Ramsey, not the Welshman that we know, but Jacob's brother. Jacob will get on to him later. I really like him. Still very young as well, so hopefully he'll go to Burnley and do well there. In 14th, a bit of a controversial one because this team actually did really well last season. But I'm going with Brentford. A lot of people still back them to finish top 10 or 11th or thereabouts. I think they'll do a little bit worse than that. This might just be because I don't like them again, but I originally had them. I'd recorded this video yesterday, yeah, and I had them in 13th, and I had a different team in 14th, who we'll get onto a bit later. Obviously, Ivan Toney will be suspended for the first half of the season. He's going to be a big miss, but Brentford actually did quite well without him last season. They only played 5 games without him, I think, and they won 4 and drew 1, and those games were against Liverpool, against Tottenham, against Man City, you know, not easy teams. I think they will be fine without him. Obviously, Mbeumo stepped up a lot more last season, scored a lot more goals. Vissa will get more game time. Schade is going to have to step up. I don't remember a lot from him last season. The only thing I do really remember is him missing an open goal. I don't remember who it was against. It might be Southampton. But he will need to step up a lot more, because you can't lose a 20-goal-a-season player and not feel it. You know, everyone's going to have to step up. Raya made the most saves in the Premier League last season. He's now gone. I've seen mixed things about Flecken from the 3 Brentford fans on Twitter. Some people don't rate him. They've still got Strakosha, who was a good goalkeeper for Lazio, so he might step in. But Brentford have overperformed the last 2 years, and I think Thomas Frank knows what he's doing. The recruitment team know what they're doing. They'll still be fine. I think, you know, realistically, they would probably take it. In 13th, I've gone with Fulham. Now, I'm based on the fact that Mitrovic is going to stay. It's going to, you know, put his issues behind him after not being allowed to go to Saudi Arabia and perform. If he doesn't, Fulham will finish lower than Brentford and probably even lower than Burnley. Mark Silva has said Mitrovic is happy. Obviously, he's going to say that. He's not going to say, oh, he's unhappy, we're not going to play him. But I'll be interested to see how he performs. He performed very well last season. They missed him massively when he weren't there. I don't think that Carlos Vinicius is good enough. I don't think that Jimenez is good enough. Even they've just signed him, very cheap fee, but neither of them are anywhere near Mitrovic level. Willian is also potentially leaving. He just signed a new contract, but Saudi are still interested in him. If Fulham were to get big fees for both of them and replace them well, potentially they could still do well, but I don't know, man. I am banking on Mitrovic wanting to stay, because he was a captain, you know, he's a good player. They're very close to signing Callum Hudson-Odoi, which could be a good signing for him. It's a cheap fee, you know, from very local rivals Chelsea. By the way, on that deal though, Chelsea rejected 65, 70 mil from Bayern Munich a few years ago for him, and now they're selling him for 4 million. What a bad decision, man. They've lost Manuel Solomon. They're potentially going to lose Adarabioyo. He's been linked with Tottenham. I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle making a move for him either. But they've still kept, as of right now, Mitrovic. Pelinha's still there. Pereira's still there. Leno's still there. Bassi, I'm not too sure about as a signing. Apparently, he wasn't very good last season. They've spent close to 20 million quid on him. But they've still got Kenny Tete, who was very good last season, especially defensively. Like I said, if they all perform as they did last season, they'll be fine. If they don't, and if Mitrovic has his head turned, if Willian has his head turned, they will be a bit lower. In 12th, I'm going with Nottingham Forest. They obviously spent big money last season in the summer, and it took a while for them to gel. I think that's now happened. You know, Gibbs and Brennan Johnson are absolutely key to their system. They're very young still, and they're very good. Awoniyi seemed to find his feet at the end of last season. Scored 5 goals, really important goals, 2 against Chelsea, 2 against Southampton in a massive relegation clash, and 1 against Arsenal. All those goals potentially kept them in the league. On top of that, they've added Elanga. He could change the system, play a 4-2-3-1 or something, play them all together. Or Elanga's a great player to come off the bench. They've still got Dennis as an impact player. They've got Chris Wood if they need a goal. They've got options on the bench in the attack. I can see Forest scoring 50 to 60 goals next season. But I do worry about the defence. They haven't added a lot. They've added Ola Aina. Don't know too much about him. I believe he's a left back. Could be wrong about that. Again, don't know too much about him. The goalkeeping situation worries me, because they've only got Turner in right now. They're still linked with Henderson. Apparently, they're still in talks. They need to get that done ASAP. Their first game is against Arsenal. I don't think they're going to win that even if they still had Navas. But Navas is genuinely world class. To have him last season kept them in the league. To not have him now is... Henderson needs to get done ASAP, because I don't think Turner's good enough. I think they'll ship like 5 to Arsenal at this rate. Also, speaking of Forest as a QPR fan, obviously, I didn't like Forest because I still remember Jack Colback scoring on the 29th of October 2021 in the last minute. Deflected shot, Friday night game. It still haunts me, but Colback's come to us. Steve Cook's come to us from Forest. Forest fans have wished us well. So, you know what? I hope you do well now, Forest. All is forgiven because he now plays for us. Good luck. But I do think Forest would definitely take this, it's an improvement on last year. Forest were the only team I actually predicted right last year. I put them in 16th, they finished 16th. I think they'll do a bit better this season. The attack, like I said, the attack is so good. I can see them scoring a lot of goals. I do worry about their defensive record. Like, they might ship over 80. but they'll be the team that have a lot of 4-3s next season. Now in 11th, I've put the team that I had in 14th originally. Yesterday I had them in 14th, and today I have them in 11th. It's Bournemouth. Getting rid of O'Neill was a really weird decision for me because I thought he did so well with a really bad squad last year to get him there. They've replaced him with another guy who likes to press, apparently. I don't know much about Irola, but apparently he likes to press. He has a bit of a rep for giant killing, so it'll be good to see him play next season. They were fantastic to watch last season, and O'Neill had him playing really well. They signed Traore permanently. Him and Utara were fantastic together last season. Still got Solanke, Billing. They've added Alex Scott to the mix. Max Aarons is a fantastic right back for the Championship. It'll be interesting to see how he does in the Premier League now. Obviously, when he's been there with Norwich, they've not had a great squad. Bournemouth squad is much better than any Norwich squad that have been in the Premier League in the last 5-6 years. They hijacked Carquez from going to Lazio. That's the Bournemouth actually big time, you know, that's mad. And also, speaking on the attack, they've added Justin Kluivert. He hasn't lived up to the potential that everyone thought he had at the start of his career, but Bournemouth, I think, is a good step for him to go. You know, he was at Roma, he's been at Ajax. Bournemouth are a club where there's a little bit less pressure. Potentially that could help him shine. They've got a really good, again with Bournemouth, they've got a really good attack. I think they'll score a lot of goals. Defensively, I'm not as worried about them as I am with Forest because they've added Max Aarons. You know, the Zabani I felt was decent. Carquez, I don't know much about him, but I think he's alright. I think Neto is better than Henderson in goal. So I don't think they'll concede as many as Forest. I don't think they'll score quite as many, but they'll still score a lot. Losing Lerma is going to be big. So I think they might need another defensive midfielder in. Brooks will feel like a new signing as well. It's great to see that he's recovered from cancer. Wish him well. Hope he does really well this season. And I think Bournemouth would absolutely take this. You know, what a season this would be for both Forest and Bournemouth. They both came up together last season. In 10th, I'm going with West Ham United. I've seen a lot of people putting them like just above relegation and stuff. It could happen, but I'm going to explain why I think they'll do a lot better. So Rice, first of all, is a massive loss. He's one of the best players in the world in his position. And to lose him is going to be a big miss to any club. But they got a big fee for him, a fee that I think was justified. I think he is definitely worth that sort of money. Fernandes was if Bellingham was Rice's. And it's only recently they've started to make signings. The new technical director, Tim, I don't really know how to say his last name, so I'm just going to call him Tim, and David Moyes, the gaffer, were clashing a little bit apparently because Moyes wanted Premier League proven players who are a bit shithouse, you know, the way he likes to play. Whereas Tim, former director at Bayer Leverkusen, you know, they've brought through a lot of young, exciting talents the last few years. He want to focus more on that side of things. I feel like they've now come to a compromise. They're going to try and sign a few from each. Like Edson Alvarez is probably more of a Tim signing. He's a ferocious defensive midfielder, very good at tackling, like kind of like a Casemiro, not great at passing and stuff, but a proper destroyer. Pair that with a Ward-Prowse, who I think could fit into either category. He's really exciting. He's a great player. He can press. He can take free kicks. His passing's good. You know, he'll run the whole game. Premier League proven already as well. Them two as a duo could be really, really good. You have Edson doing all the defending. You'll have James, you know, sort of doing a bit of defending, but also bringing the ball forward, passing. You'll have Paquetá, if he is still there, bringing the ball forward, again, passing, dribbling. He can defend as well. And on Paquetá, from April onwards last season, he was phenomenal. He was so good. You know, he also brought the best out of players like Bowen. You know, it felt like Paquetá finally found his feet. Finally started to become the player we all thought West Ham were getting. And now Manchester City have entered the mix and they want him. He's got an £85 million release clause that kicks in next summer. Man City want him for a bit cheaper. He wants to go, as he probably would. You know, the Champions League team, they're probably going to win the title. We'll get onto that later. But he'd be a huge loss for West Ham, unless they were to get 90 million quid for him, in which case it wouldn't be too bad if they can replace him well, upgrade other areas. I'm happy they're not getting McTominay. I don't think he's good enough at all. And if they got him, it'd be like a proper Moyes signing. I think Moyes should have walked after the Conference League win. He would have left a legend, done his job. West Ham fans would love him. He could potentially ruin that this season. Maguire is, again, a great Moyes signing. You know, a proper just defensive defender. He can't pass, he can't play out from the back, but he will win headers. I think he could do well at West Ham, but if they were to move on from Moyes, I think he would probably be one of the first people to get shipped off. They sold Scamacca, so I'd still like them to get another striker. I'm not sure about Antonio and Ings. You know, obviously Antonio's been good for multiple years, but he's not a proper clinical striker, which I think they need. They've been linked with Palmer. You know, interesting to see if that happens on loan. It'd be good signing for them because they're going to be in the Europa League. I think they'll do well in the Europa League, get to at least the quarterfinals or semi-finals. I think West Ham fans are starting to get really worried when they were heavily linked with Borges. He'd supposedly agreed a deal. They're about to do a medical and they got hijacked. You know, it was lingering for so long. But it looks like they're finally starting to do some business. They're cutting it a bit fine with the start of the season. Be interested to see if they actually play some of the new signings. But yeah, I think they'll be fine. They've got a good squad. They've got some really good players in there, like Bowen, Paquetá, if he's still there, obviously. I definitely think Alvarez is a massive upgrade on Souček because he's just awful. He was really good at the start as well when he first came to West Ham. I was really impressed by him, but now he's fallen off massively. Now we're getting on to top 9 here. I just want to say any of these 9 teams could finish top 4. I think they're really good. So if I put you in 9th, don't get offended, right? I'm going to give my reasons. And in 9th, I'm putting Brighton and Hove Albion. They've lost some key players like McAllister, like Colwill, who was only there on loan, but they've replaced them with Dahoud for McAllister. Milner could also play in there. They've got Igor in for Colwill, left-footed centre-back. Caicedo could still leave. You know, again, I trust Brighton to replace them. They're so well run. They know what they're doing. I think João Pedro is a good signing. You know, he was one of Watford's only good players last year in the Championship. Replacing Sanchez, who was a very average, mistake-prone goalkeeper, with Verbruggen, it's great business as well. He's cheaper, he's a lot younger. He'll be a lot better than Sanchez ever has been. Ferguson and Cesar Buonanotte, players like that, all going to be a year older, a year more experienced, a year better. You know, they're so young, and the fact that they're still there is massive. Mitoma and Cesar have been at Manchester City. I don't think they'll leave. If they were to leave, they'd get big fees from it, and there'll be new players that they bring through. Mitoma, I don't actually think would be a bigger loss as people might think. I actually don't think he was great last season. There was a spell where he was really good, but then after that he cooled off massively. I still remember that chance he was against Manchester United, one-on-one against The Hague. He just hit him straight in the face. Like, I had him in my FPL. I was so like, oh, let's not get into that. And I also think that they will get very far in the Europa League as well. I think they could potentially win it. I would back Brighton to get to the final of the Europa League and potentially go and win it. Now in 8th, I've gone with Aston Villa. I think Diaby is a great signing. He's already signed by Leverkusen and forced Bailey out of the team, and now he might do the same thing at Villa. Pretty funny. Pau Torres is a great signing as well. He obviously worked with Emery at Villarreal when they got to Champions League semi-finals. And Diego Carlos will feel like a new signing as well because he was injured the whole of last season. That as a centre-back pairing is fantastic. Since Emery took over, they've been the 3rd best team in the Premier League in terms of points won. That's insane. I do not think they can maintain that because they've got the Conference League, which I believe they're going to go on to win. And as we saw with West Ham, that could affect their Premier League performance. I do understand the different clubs play completely different systems, different managers, different players, but it will still have a slight impact on them. Unfortunately, Buendia picked up an ACL injury. Wish him well, hopefully he recovers quick. So they've been linked with Nicola Zaniolo to replace him. He's a good player. I remember him at Roma a few years ago. I think he went to Turkey after that, which is where he is right now. It's interesting that he did that. It'll be interesting to see how he can adapt to the Premier League as well. I'm really excited about Jacob Ramsey. I think he's a phenomenal player, he can do everything, man. He's so good. I don't understand how no one's been linked with him. He's elite, man. He's elite. They've got Watkins, who was really good at the end of last season under Emery. Again, I think he'll be very good. They've got Tim. Obviously, he was on loan here last season. He'll be back. He's a great central midfielder, box-to-box type player. Archer as well will be their backup striker. We'll give Watkins some rest in the Conference League games, for example. I think both of them two will play a lot there as young players that need to get bedded in. I think Villa will go on to win the Conference League and get into the Europa League next year that way. In 7th, this is a big call from me because everyone's got them back in the top 4. A lot of people have them in the top 2. It's Liverpool. Now, McAllister and Szoboszlai are great signings in the midfield. McAllister's been awful in pre-season though. He got dribbled past 5 times in one half against Bayern Munich. Now, I know you can't look too much into that because pre-season is mainly about getting fitness, but I'm not sure how well he's adapted, and it'll be interesting to see that as the season goes on. Szoboszlai is a player I think they needed. He's a great attacking midfielder. However, I think they're actually quite light in the central midfield areas. Obviously, I know they've got Elliott and Jones, and still got Bajcetic and I guess Thiago, even though he's always injured. But they haven't got a proper 6. Lavia, that deal supposedly got hijacked by Chelsea. Liverpool aren't going to go and spend £100 million on Moises Caicedo now, are they? So they're going to have to look elsewhere, and the season starts, as I'm recording this, tomorrow. I know they've got a couple extra days because they're playing on the Sunday, but they need to get a move on, man. They took the piss with Lavia as well. They gave Southampton 3 different offers worth £45 million. Just pay another 3, 4 or 5 mil, get him done, get him in the squad and get him training, gelled into the system, so you've got a squad that could compete a bit better. But I'm also just not convinced at all by the defence. Last season it was awful. Alisson bailed them out so many times. I believe he was the goalkeeper with the highest XG prevented. He's an elite goalkeeper and he deserves a better backline in front of him. Trent as a defender, absolutely awful. He cannot defend, he's lazy, doesn't track back, he loses mark away, like everything about his defending is awful. Fantastic passer, fantastic midfielder, not a good defender. Van Dijk, absolute shadow of who he once was. He used to defend with an aura, he used to jog back, but he used to do it so well. Now he's a bit of a clown, mate. Like, look at what Perisic did to him last season. That's what Van Dijk, like, he still tries to defend like that. Against Manchester United at Old Trafford, when Milner put in that tackle to give Van Dijk some time to come out and block Sancho's shot, and he just stood there doing nothing. Like, Matip, injury prone, he looks so slow now. He's getting on a bit. Konaté's always injured. I haven't seen him linked with many centre-backs. I do believe they'll probably get a defender in, but they need to get it done soon, man, because that defence is not great. They've got a great front line. I think if Diaz, Gakpo and Salah all stay fit the whole season, that's a great front line. They'll score a lot of goals. Núñez, he has to do a lot better this season. Was not good last season, despite what people will tell you. He scored like 9 Premier League goals, and he missed about 20 big chances. That's not good enough. Obviously, Jota was good at the end of last season as well. It would be interesting what happens with him being injury-free. But they've lost a lot of leaders like Henderson and Milner, Fabinho. You know, even more squad players like Firmino. You know, him going is big. It's, you know, nice to have players that have been around for a while. You know, Liverpool also have Europa League. I think they'll go far in that. You know, they'll probably get to the final. It'll be between them or Brighton to win it, I think. In 6th, I'm going with Chelsea. I think everyone knows they'll improve massively this season. They've got no Europe. They've got a very young squad. I think 6th place would be a good finish for them. They almost think they're playing FM. They're signing a lot of South American wonder kids, so it'll be interesting to see how they all adapt and stuff. Like I alluded to earlier, they're potentially going to hijack that Lavia deal from Liverpool, which would actually be really funny, man, because Liverpool had so long to get it done. It almost seemed like Chelsea's interest in him had faded when they went full in for Caicedo, but he's now back on the radar. He's a lot cheaper, half the price. They signed Tyler Adams. I'm not sure how he'll adapt, to be honest. I don't think he's a great signing. I think he's pretty shit. He's okay as a squad player. Nothing special. I think they did really well to trim the squad and get rid of a lot of players that were either on huge wages, were just absolutely terrible, or just injury prone, like players like Kovacic, Kante, who were just injury prone, and players that just weren't good enough, like Koulibaly, like Mendy, you know, Azpilicueta, you know, legend there, but just not good enough anymore. Havertz, to get 60 mil for Havertz, I already made a video on this, but to get 60 mil pound for Havertz, he's so bad. I don't know how they've done that. Fair play, Chelsea. Like Pulisic, he's awful. To get 20 mil from him is good. Loftus-Cheek, good squad player, but again, not a lot of quality. To get nearly 20 mil from him is great. Aubameyang going as well, bad again in the dressing room. They've got really good centre-back depth. They've obviously got Colwill, they've got Thiago Silva getting on a bit. I'm not sure how he'll adapt to a full-back. I think he's better in a free-back because of his age. He'll obviously have a loss of pace, but he's still a great leader, great player. Diassi, new signing. Badiashile still there. Fana, unfortunately, again, another ACL injury. He'll probably miss close to 70% of the season. Wish him well. It's sad that he had to deactivate his social media. Don't send him hate, guys, man. That's not cool. And they've still got Trevor Chalobah there, so they've got a lot of players in centre back. In terms of fullbacks, they've got the best pairing, I believe, in the whole league with Chilwell and James, but they're just not fit together ever. At least one of them is always injured. I think at right back they've got good backup in Gusto. What I've seen from him, what I've heard about him, he looks good. Obviously that could allow James to even move into midfield if needed. At left back, I don't trust Cucurella. I don't think he's good enough. I'm expecting much bigger things from Madueke and Mudryk. I think both of them will be much better. They'll both get close to 15 goals and assists, if not more, each. Nkunku's a good signing as well. It's unfortunate he'll miss probably the first 3 months of the season with an injury. Jackson as well had a very good second half of the season last year in Spain. Be interested to see how he adapts. But also, yeah, on Sanchez, I mentioned him earlier. Why have they gone and signed him? He's awful. He's no better than Kepa. He's also very mistake prone. They're very similar. They could have gone and spent £5 extra million and gone and got David Raya, who's quite clearly an upgrade on Kepa and quite clearly better than Sanchez. Instead, he's gone to Arsenal. Well, it's a very young squad. You know, even if they don't get top 4 this season, it's not the be-all end-all. In the next few years, Chelsea will be right up there. I think they'll be competing for the Premier League in the next 2 to 3 years. They'll be in the top 4 race next season, definitely. They will be in there this season. I just think they'll fall short. Now, in 5th place, another controversial one, because a lot of people have put them in the top 2, is Manchester United. Now, I think Manchester United were very lucky in a lot of games last season. They got lucky VAR calls, and in a lot of the games they didn't play well, but they got results. And that is a mark of a good team, but it happened a bit too often for my liking. To only score 58 goals is just not good enough for a team challenging for top 4 for the title. I don't think they'll be able to do that again this season and get away with it. Onana is an upgrade on De Gea, but I don't think he's as much of an upgrade as people think. De Gea was, in my opinion, overhated. I don't think he was as bad as people think. I know he was awful with the ball at his feet, and he was a bit mistake prone last season, and he cost them games, but he also saved them in some games, like against West Ham. I remember he made a fantastic save from Declan Rice shot in the last minute. Even in games that they lost, he made some big saves, like against Newcastle. He kept it respectable. Onana is an upgrade, I do realise that. They spent a fair amount of money on him, but he's a good goalkeeper. He got to Champions League final last season. I think Mount is a great signing. You know, hopefully Manchester United will play an attacking system and we'll see him fully shine. Højlund, I'm not sure about. I don't think he'll get more than 15 goals, which isn't bad. Young player in his first season in the Premier League, but he'll be compared to Haaland constantly. It'll be interesting to see how he can deal with that sort of pressure. You know, he hasn't really done it in the Serie A. And I also think he could compromise Rashford. Rashford was great last season, but he's not good as a winger in my opinion, because Højlund is a proper number 9. You know, last season you had Weghorst dropping deep, which allowed Rashford space to get in behind. This season, if Højlund's occupying those areas, Rashford's going to have to adapt his game. Last season, whenever he tried to dribble, he was dreadful. He could not get past anyone. He's not a creative player. His best assets are his pace and his shooting. He's a striker, and him having a proper number 9 there will compromise him, unless Bruno Fernandes moves to the right and Amrabat comes in, because then you can play a double of Amrabat and Casemiro. You'll have Bruno out wide on the right, creating chances. You'll have Mount in the middle. Obviously, if Bruno is going to be a bit deeper because he'll be creating chances, Højlund might move over a bit. Rashford could exploit the space in behind there. Mount will obviously cover a bit more on the left. But I think if they don't do that, and if Amrabat is coming as sort of a backup, and they still play Antony, for example, then I think Rashford might struggle a little bit. I think Sally Maguire is great. He's not a Champions League quality player. He was an awful transfer. I think they need another centre-back regardless of if he goes or not. I don't think Varane's quite good enough anymore. He's completely lost it in my opinion. Like, he was one of the best centre-backs in the world for years, but I think his legs have just gone. Martinez is still good. You've still got 2 good fullbacks in Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw and Dalot as well. I think it'll be really tight from like 3rd to 6th, even 7th. Liverpool will still be in that race. I just don't think Manchester United will make it. And now in 4th, again a team that people have put in 9th, is Tottenham Hotspur. I am expecting Kane to stay. Like yesterday I recorded this, yeah, and I put him in 4th. Then I woke up today and Bayern Munich had agreed a price with Tottenham, and I was like, oh fuck, they're not going to finish top 4 without Kane. Now Kane is expected to reject the contract. So we'll speak about Kane quickly. Like, if I'm a Tottenham fan, like, Kane's ideal thing here would either be just stay at Tottenham until you retire or whatever, or until you can't do it anymore, or go Bayern Munich now for 2 or 3 years, win a couple Bundesligas, win a couple German Cups, potentially win the Champions League, and I would make him favourites if he was to go there this season, and then come back to Tottenham when you're still in your early 30s, get I think it's like 43 goals to break Alan Shearer's record. If he does not do that and he runs his contract down, next season, there's no point in going to Manchester United. They've spent £70 million on a new striker. Why would they have done that if they're going to get Kane in anyway? That would be awful business. Is he going to run his contract and leave on a free to Bayern Munich next year? Because that would be awful for Tottenham. You know, they've lost 100 million quid there. But suppose he does stay, he agrees a new contract or whatever. That's the best striker in the world still at Tottenham. They have no European football. They look fantastic under Ange as well. I've seen him playing in pre-season. They look great. Udogie, I don't know much about him. I heard he's very promising. He's been very good in pre-season. They've got Van der Ven, great centre-back, someone they needed. They're still linked with another centre-back, but Romero's looked good in pre-season as well. James Maddison, I think, is signing of the season. £40 million for, in my opinion, the 3rd best attacking midfielder in the league, behind just Kevin De Bruyne and Martin Ødegaard. Absolutely phenomenal business there. He'll hopefully allow Son and Kulusevski to get back to their best form as well. And genuinely, the midfielders, Bassoon, we saw him at Brighton, he was very good. Bentancur, also a very good player. They've got Sarr. Don't know much about him, but he was meant to be promising. Højbjerg could be leaving, but I don't think they necessarily need him if they've still got the other 3. They've addressed the goalkeeper. They've addressed all the issues pretty much that they have, you know, and I genuinely think that there's a good positive atmosphere around Tottenham now, which wasn't the case last season under Conte, and I think they'll get it. Now in 3rd place, I've put the Geordies. I put Newcastle United. I think I'm one of the only people that have put them still in the top 4, and I've actually put them improving. Most people have them down 6th, 7th, 8th. Because they don't think they can cope with the Champions League football. I'm going to explain why I think they can. So in my opinion, they've got the best manager in the league. I don't think there's anyone better than Eddie Howe. He's so good. He adapts in games. What he did with that Newcastle squad when he took them over, no one else I think could have done that. He's made a lot of average players look really good, because that's just how good he is. You know, the way he plays, the atmosphere around Newcastle United, fantastic. Barnes is a phenomenal signing. You know, this man got 13 goals in a relegate. He adds a goal threat from wide, which is massive. Tonali, a great midfielder, fantastic playmaker. Will allow Bruno to go a bit further forward in games as well. You know, them two as a double could be the best midfield duo in the league. They're very, you know, Bruno, we've seen how good he is. He can do everything, he can defend, he can dribble, he can attack. He does everything. And to have Tonali there to help him out a bit more with defence and passing, hopefully unleash Bruno. Alain Saint-Maximin leaving is a huge loss. He's great. He adds creativity, which I think some of the other wingers might not have. He adds that directness, the dribbling ability. Barnes also has the directness and good dribbling ability, but I don't think he's got the skills of Saint-Maximin. He hasn't got the unpredictability of Saint-Maximin. Livramento also a good signing. He can cover Trippier at right back. He can also play at left back if needed. And I do think they need another left back. I don't think Burn's good enough to play in the Champions League. He's a good player, but I don't think he should be starting for a Champions League level club. He's a good backup at both left back and centre back. He's versatile, but I would still like something coming over the top of him. And I still think they would need one more centre back just in case of any injuries. But other than that, I think their squad's really good. Nick Pope's a great goalkeeper. Gordon will feel like a new signing. They'll have him for a full year. He's had a good under 21 Euros. He should come back firing. They've got Isak, who will hopefully have an injury-free year. He was great last season, as was Wilson. Really surprised at how good Wilson was. No, I mean, everyone who's played FIFA knows he's good, and FM, but he was really, really good last season. Got him 18 goals. Fantastic player. And also Elliot Anderson, he'll play a big part. He was good last season when he came on. I remember he scored and it got disallowed, which is really sad. He's versatile, he can play out wide, he can play in central midfield, which I think is his best role. He's so good. He's young, he's hungry. It's good for Newcastle to play like that. Also, they've got Willock and Joel Linton, who I haven't even mentioned, two players who played very well last season. They've got so many options, and I think they can do it, man. The top two are the same two that finished in the top two last season. But who do I think is going to win the title? I think it'll be Manchester City. I think Arsenal will just fall short. I think they've had a great transfer window, signing Declan Rice and Jurrien Timber. Fantastic. Two really good players. You know, Timber as well, the signing, he can play, he's so versatile, he can play all across the backline, he can even play in midfield if needed. I think Saliba's injury was the point where Arsenal started to crumble, especially with Tomiyasu getting injured at the same time. They didn't really have enough cover. Timber adds much needed depth there. Declan Rice, I've already mentioned, I think he's one of the best midfielders in the world. If he plays with Partey and Ødegaard, that's the best midfield in the league. However, Havertz, I think it's an awful signing. Again, I've already made this video. Terrible, doesn't add a lot. If they play a midfield three of Rice, Havertz and Ødegaard, that's awful, man. They'll get run through. But their squad is still they had the youngest squad last season, and it's now going to be a year older, a year more experienced. Like the same with those Brighton lads. They'll be better. They'll learn from the experience of last season. They'll potentially be able to go one better. I'm not counting Arsenal. I think these two will go right to the end of the season. I think it could be decided on the last game week. Obviously, Arsenal will have the Champions League aspect now as well. I think they'll go very far. They'll get to the semi-finals at least. On Newcastle, I think they'll probably get to at least the quarterfinals. I'm expecting them to do a lot better than other people think. I think losing Xhaka is big. He was so good last season. Even if he wasn't going to start this year as a depth option, he's a loss, but he wanted to go. He did a lot for the club last season. Raya, you know, adds competition to Ramsdale. He's a good goalkeeper. I already mentioned him earlier. Don't really think they needed to spend the money on him. I think they could have, again, added another midfielder. I think they're a bit light. They've only really got Rice and Partey. I know Jorginho can play there, but he's not very good. And Havertz could play there, but he's, again, not very good. Need another party-type player, like a proper defensive midfielder like Lavia. They could have just gone and bought him instead of Ryan Havertz. You know, they spent 80 mil on Ryan Havertz, and they could have spent 50 on Lavia. But Raya, you know, I do get the competition aspect. Raya could even just play Champions League games. Ramsdale could play the Premier League games, or vice versa. You know, so it's not the worst sign. It's, you know, Raya did make the most saves in the Premier League last season as well, so it's a good signing. And I think this is the best year for anyone to get over Manchester City, because they are going through a little bit of transition. There's a few outgoings, a few incomings. Yeah, more than normal for them. So Arsenal are going to go right to the end. I'm just not sure if they can do it. I would love to sit here in May and say Arsenal did it. You know, it's good for the league, and I feel like they're the only team that can really mount a challenge. But I just think Manchester City are too strong. They've won it 3 times in a row now. They're treble winners. They've got a great squad. Even though they've lost Mahrez, they've lost Gundogan, they've bought in players to replace them. They have players on their bench that can replace them. Keeping Kyle Walker is great. It looks like they're going to keep Bernardo Silva. You know, on Walker, he's just so good. He might not be the most technical out of their defenders. He's quite low down on the pecking order there, but he adds that pace, man, that no one else in that squad has got. He's a player that can deal with Vinicius Jr., with Mbappe, I don't think any of the other defenders could deal with him like he does. You know, Vinicius scored last year, but it was when he went down the middle of the goal. Like, he wasn't out wide. He didn't do Walker in. And although he's a year older, he's still so good, man. He's so underrated. And Gvardiol, one of the best young centre-backs in the world, who can also play at left-back. He'll be there for years. He's so talented. They've signed Kovacic. I think he'll be great in a possession-based system. They've been linked with Elise. For just 35 mil would be a steal. Paquetá as well. Not sure they need either of them two because they've got Phil Foden on the bench, who we'll get onto in a bit as well. They've also been linked with Jeremy Doku, legend of the QPR career mode. So it'll be good to see him in the Premier League. Yeah, on Foden, you know, I think this is the year he has to really say to Pep, I need to be in the team or I'm going. Because he can't have another year just sitting on the bench or having, like, you know, a spell of 3 games and being back on the bench. He's got to have his own role in the team. He's versatile. He can play it on the left, on the right, in the middle. They've replaced Gundogan with Kovacic. Morris is gone, but it looks like they're going to actually fully replace him with Elise. Grealish on the left looks like he's made that his own. Foden has to force his way into the team this year, or he's, and I'm sorry, but I think he's overrated. I think he's not as good as people think he is. He's got to show that he needs to be in this team. Same with Palmer, to be honest. I think Palmer's still young enough where he's got another year at least where he can maybe sit on the bench. He's been linked with loan moves away, and Pep said if he wants to leave on loan to get more game time, we'll let him go. I think Haaland won't be as good as he was last season. I still think he'll get mid to high 20s, and it's crazy to think that's not going to be a good, like, great season for him because he got 36 last season in the Prem. He'll still be good. I think Kane will win the Golden Boot. A bit bonus here. De Bruyne will probably win the assist. Most clean sheets, I'm going to go with Ederson. I think Manchester City will be hard to beat and hard to score against. Cups, we'll go Carabao Cup. I think Manchester City will win that. I back Tottenham to win the FA Cup. I think they'll finally break their trophy duck. Conference League, Villa. Europa League, I'm going to go with Brighton. Liverpool will be up there as well, but I'm going to go with Brighton. Champions League, if Kane stays at Tottenham, I don't think Bayern will win it. I think Paris Saint-Germain are going to win the Champions League this year. This is their year. Yeah, I like PSG. I like him. I hope Mbappe stays. I think it'd just be really nice to see him win it with his home club. Be a legend there rather than go to Real Madrid and just be another player. I'm not sure if it'll happen. I hope he does stay. But yeah, those are my predictions. Let me know yours in the comments. Let me know what you thought. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in May.